fun, you know.
Like a very कोई spike भी और मैं हर करूँगा मैं तो एरी आगे को एरी हर करूँगा एरी
Don't worry, Torrent. Fortune is on his side. We found him here, after all. One of his kind is sure to seek the Elden Ring. Even if it does violate the Golden Order.
बना दिया भैया ने यार और देखो कितना लाया था पता है जरा सारे सामने बना रहे थे ना 10 लोग
Oh, yes. Tarnish. Come to the lands between. Of course you have. Unfortunately for you, without guidance, without the strength of you are fated. Luckily for you, however, me. Are you familiar with grace? You may also behold its golden ray. That is the guidance. Indeed. It will lead you, Tarnished, to the path. Even if it leads you to your Grace's guidance will reveal to Castle Stormvale, the home of the decrepit demi. It's time you set off to Castle Stormvale. If you seek the It's time you to Castle. If you seek.
उधर सांभर डाल दो
अच्छा बनेगा
थोड़ा सा डाल दो
अच्छा बनेगा और दूं
मुझे इतना लाल कैसे है क्या डाल
What's up guys, welcome back to Titus Actual. This is an updated version of our Bleed starter guide. The endgame build guide will be linked at the end of the video. Don't forget you can find all of our guides and walkthroughs at TitusTV.net.
Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
This is the entire progress map for the guide. If you're new and you get lost, just come back and reference this map. You could run Bandit or Samurai, both of which will reach our endgame build at rune level 125, but Samurai has several advantages, like having 2 katanas. You also start with much better armor as a Samurai. Start the game and make your way through the starting area out to the Limgrave. This is the progress route and the key locations visited in Chapter 1. Head to the Church of Ella and make sure to grab the Site of Grace. Head northeast to the Gatefront Ruins and rest at the Gatefront Site of Grace. Unlock and equip your Spectral Steed. Grab the Limgrave West map fragment. Just run past the enemies and head downstairs to the Gatefront Ruins cellar. Grab the whetstone knife so you can apply affinities, and head back to the Church of Ella. Get the Lone Wolf Ashes and be sure to equip them, then head to the Death Touch Catacombs. You can just run past all the enemies in here to grab your second katana. Then use your Memory of Grace to return to the entrance of the catacombs. Head up and around to the cliff above the catacombs. Kill the patrolling knight up there for access to the Golden Bow Ash of War. We'll put this on a dagger later for a 15% damage buff. Fast travel back to the first step Site of Grace and head to this cliff. You can safely jump down without taking any damage, and at the bottom will be a gold pickle Foulfoot. We'll use this later, so just hang on to it for now and be sure not to use it. Make your way east to the third Church of Marika. Be sure to grab the Site of Grace as we'll be coming back here later. Grab the Sacred Tear to upgrade your flasks, and don't forget to pick up the Flask of Wondrous Physic while you're here. If you ride a couple feet north of the church, there's going to be a teardrop scarab. Destroy it for the Sacred Blade Ash of War. This is going to be very useful and save you some time later in the guide. Now head back to this point on the pond just north of the church, and use the Waygate to travel to Caelid. This is the progress route and the key locations used in Chapter 2. Ride south to Fort Vareth, and follow the path that we take through the fort. Just run past all the enemies and climb the ladder. Once you reach the top, you'll get the first half of the Dectus Medallion. For those that are new, you use this medallion to access the Altus Plateau. From here, follow this path along the right side of the roof to avoid aggroing the invisible enemies. Grab the Golden Rune 12 and just be sure to dodge the rats and pick up the Radagon Sword Seal. Then use your Memory of Grace to leave the fort. Take this time to rest at the Site of Grace to be taken to the Round Table. Sell a couple Golden Runes so you have 1200 runes. Purchase both a dagger and a finger seal. Head back to Caelid and follow the chapter progress route to this area next to the North Fort Gale Site of Grace. Kill the invisible teardrop scarab for the Flame of the Redmane's Ash of War. This Ash of War is extremely strong, I recommend using it immediately. Ride around the backside of Fort Gale. Mount your steed and jump down and grab Flame Grant Me Strength and ride away. Don't worry if you're killed here because you'll still keep the incantation. This is the route and key locations used in Chapter 3. Fast travel back to the third Church of Marika, and follow the path south to Fort Height. Just run past all the enemies in the fort and bait the knight up the ladder. It's recommended that you have Flame of the Redmanes equipped at this point. Once you're at the top of the ladder, go ahead and summon your Spirit Wolves to help you with the fight. Just wait for the wolves to take the aggro off of you, and use Flame of the Redmanes to break his poise. Follow up with a critical and rinse and repeat until he's dead, rewarding you with the Bloody Slash Ash of War, which we will need later. Be sure to loot the chest behind you for the second half of the Dectus Medallion. You now have permanent access to the Grand Lift and therefore the Altus Plateau. Head southeast to the Weeping Peninsula and pick up the Morning Star. It's a good blunt weapon that will help new players with a certain boss later. Head west along the north shore of Weeping and grab the Faith Knot Crystal Tear. You can easily dispatch the 3 enemies guarding it with Flame of the Redmanes. This will give us the faith needed to use Flame Grant Me Strength. Ride up the hill to the Church of Pilgrimage and rest at the Site of Grace. This is where we're going to farm our main weapons that we'll use for the first half of the game. At this point, stop to put the Sacred Blade Ash of War on your katana. We're farming an enemy right next to the Site of Grace that'll drop the Bandit's Curved Sword. This enemy will normally reanimate, which adds time to the farming. However, with the Sacred Blade Ash of War, you can quickly kill the enemy safely from a range, and Sacred Blade prevents him from reanimating. We actually want a second Bandit's Curved Sword, so you're just going to repeat this process by fast traveling back to the Church of Pilgrimage and farming this enemy until a second Bandit's Curved Sword drops for you. The Bandit's Curved Swords actually hit 4 times on a running or jumping attack, so we're going to use them to get a lot more bleed procs early game. This is the route and key locations used in Chapter 4. Follow the route around the east side of Stormville Castle and make your way to the small island in Liurnia. You can just avoid the couple of enemies on this island and ride straight to the altar with the Dexterity Knot Crystal Tear. This will give you 10 extra dexterity and a nice little damage boost early game. Go northeast to the Relicaria Crystal Tunnel, and rest at the site of Grace to do some flask upgrading. While you're here, you're also going to want to equip the Morning Star and put the Flame of the Red Maid's Ash of War on it. The enemies in this tunnel are weak to fire, and the boss is weak to blunt damage. You now have a weapon that does both. Also go ahead and throw your tears in your flask. Use your flask and your buffs and head into the Fog Gate. Summon your Spear Wolves to provide a distraction. Use a couple casts of Flame of the Red Maids to break poise. Follow up with a critical and then back off to let the dogs take aggro again. After breaking poise the very first time on the Crystallian, the fight becomes very trivial. The wolves should keep them basically permanently staggered, so there should be no real threat to you. Finish the fight off to be rewarded with the Smithing Stone Miner's Bell Bearing 1. This will allow you to buy unlimited amounts of Smithing Stone 1 and 2 from the round table. Now head north and use your Dectus Medallion to use the Grand Lift of Dectus and head into the Altus Plateau. This is the route and key locations used in Chapter 5. Head to this area just north of the Grand Lift of Dectus. Follow the path that I take to the Teardrop Scarab. If you stray off the path, there are several giant crabs waiting to ambush you from under the water. Finishing off this scarab will reward you with the Bloodblade Ash of War. That gives us the ability to have 2 weapons with the Bleed Affinity super early on. Follow the path east to the Sealed Tunnel. Roll through the invisible wall and follow this path down and backstab the Vulgar Militiamen. Head over to the chest for the Smithing Stone Miner's Bell Bearing 2, which gives you access to buy unlimited Smithing Stone 3 and 4 from the round table. While you're here in the Sealed Tunnel, you can actually farm Smithing Stone 5s. Depending on your patience, you can actually farm the 24 Smithing Stone 5s right here in order to take both of your weapons to plus 15 immediately. This is optional as you'll be able to both find these and buy them later on. But at the very least, while you're here, you might as well farm a couple of them. It's pretty easy. In Chapter 6, we're heading back to Fort Farth in order to do the best early game unlimited rune farm. So fast travel back to Fort Farth and go ahead and rest at the site of Grace. Put the 2 blood-based Ashes of War on your bandit's curved swords. Be sure that you select the blood affinity rather than the standard, and then equip these weapons. You're going to ride down to the Slumbering Dragon and perform jump attacks by just jumping and pressing LB or L1 depending on the controller that you're using. Use the Gold Pickle Foulfoot when he's around 20% health and mount your steed. It's very important that you're already on your steed when he dies. When you see his tail twitch indicating that he's died, you need to go back to the site of Grace as fast as possible. If you're too slow, it will not work. And when you get back up, the dragon will still be there, but you will get the runes for the kill, allowing you to repeat this process indefinitely, to both level weapons and stats. Go back to the round table and turn in the 2 bell bearings that you retrieved, and purchase enough smithing stones to where you have exactly 24 of each smithing stone 1, 2, 3, and 4. The amount will vary depending on how many you picked up. Go ahead and level your weapons to plus 12 or plus 15 if you farm the extra 24 smithing stone 5s. You now have 2 very strong weapons that have great blood loss buildup. You can now do the rune farm several more times, but much faster now that you have stronger weapons with a much higher blood loss buildup. At this point, just repeat the farm as many times as you want until you have the stats that you personally desire. I think a good balance would be to kill the dragon 2 more times and use the stats shown here. At level 36, with these stats and these weapons, with the buffs that you have, you should have no problem destroying bosses at this point. Just remember that your running and jumping L1 attacks hit 4 times instead of 2, so you proc bleeds a lot faster and deal a lot more overall DPS that way. If you're curious where to go with stats and gear from this point on, in order to pull off some of the clips like you saw at the very beginning of this video, then I highly recommend you go and watch our level 125 build guide. It's called the Samurai Bleed God 3 Builds in 1. It utilizes the same stats at level 125 to run 3 different builds, a Twin Blade setup, a Rivers of Blood setup, and a Dual Katana setup. We also created a separate video on the same character with the same stats called the Blender, which is a Scavenger's Curved Sword New Game Plus setup. If you're still here and this video helped you, do me a big favor and smash that like button, and if you want to be notified when we put out a new
ये गेम प्ले करता हूँ, ऐसे ब्लाइंड करता हूँ, टीपी करता हूँ, ये हमेशा वर्क करता है मेरा हेवन पे, फक कर देता हूँ मैं, गया और साइड पर जाके मार कहता हूँ, ब्लाइंड करा, टीपी करा, राइट को मुड़ा, साइड पर ने पीछे से मार दिया. आप पूछे मेरे प्लेट यहाँ क्यों रखा है, तो वो इसलिए कि आप फिर से भूख लगी तो इसमें सामान तो ले लेंगे थोड़ा सा. अच्छा लगा मेरे को आज इसका मसाला. और ये दाल ठीक कर दो मेरा.
सो जाओगे थोड़ी देर?
सो जाओ, मैं भी सो. काम वाम नहीं करना देखो.
फिर सिस्टम खराब है ना मेरा।
ले जा रही थी, फिर वो सांप जो पहले ही मर चुका था, यमराज के पास इसका